Now, of course, as of the last few hours, we have a new Pope, Pope Leo XIV. But it's not Pope Leo so I want to talk about here so much, although I'll talk about him sooner or later, no doubt, as he's to an extent someone new to me. But man who's inspired his name is not new to me, and that's Pope Leo XIII. And Pope Leo XIII is a very, very important figure in the history of the church, particularly because of his encyclical Rerum Novarum, which talks about the rights of capital and labour. Now, I do not intend to go through the whole of that document, which would be a very, very lengthy thing to do. That would be a very lengthy process. But if anyone is interested, I will include this link over here on capital and labour from a site called Catholic Culture, where people can listen to it as an audiobook. And it's about, just under 90 minutes long. But who was Pope Leo XIII? Cardinal Robert F. Prevost has selected the name Leo XIV, a apparent nod to Pope Leo XIII, who deserves to be called the founding father of Catholic social doctrine in modern times, with his encyclical Rerum Novarum as its foundational document. The Catholic Church has taught social morality for many centuries. This body of teaching includes moral principles like dignity and inviolability of the human person, the right to private property, the conditions for a just war, and much else. The conditions for a just war are one that you'll see endlessly argued out by moral theologians. You can find some quite amusing stuff on that if you have a particular type of mind, which, as social conditions have changed, of course, however, the church's social doctrine has expanded to take in new concerns. And awful to pronounce, Rerum Novarum, was basically produced during the industrialization of the Western world and other places in the late 19th century. And it's basically a slap at the idea that either untroubled capitalism or untroubled communism are good for society. It views them as both fundamentally flawed. So it's worth noting that. It will also give a clue, I think, that Robert Prevost has taken that particular name. And I could see this being quite an interesting papacy if Robert Prevost is indeed inspired by Pope Leo XIII. And if he's going to attempt to sort of use the sort of work in Rerum Novarum to sort of inform his papacy. He certainly does seem, from what I've been able to find out so far in research on the man, to be sort of very, very scathing about the way refugees and illegal aliens, I dislike that term thoroughly, are treated in the US, which I can imagine is going to put him at odds with certain political figures, and I don't think I need to spell out which one. Now, coming back to Pope Leo XIII, he began his career as an administrator in the Papal States. And if I mispronounce any Italian names here, I do apologize. First as governor of Benevento and then of Perugia. In 1843, Pope Gregory XIV named him nuncio to Belgium. But there he involved himself in a dispute with the government over education policy, and the Belgian king requested his recall. He was then named Archbishop of Perugia. He was named a cardinal in 1853. After the 31-year pontificate of Blessed Pius IX, the cardinals of the conclave to elect his successor evidently wanted someone who would be an interim pope, basically a fill-in. Not uncommon in the church. The church has its politics like all organizations. I don't pretend otherwise. We're only human beings. It offers just long enough to tweak the policies of his predecessors, but then leaving the scene. Cardinal Pesci, in the age of 68 and believed to be in frail health, seemed to fit the bill on both counts. He was elected on February the 20th, 1878. No doubt, to the elector's surprise, Pope Leo went to serve as a pope for 25 years, making his pontificate the third longest in history, after only those of Pope Pius IX and Pope St. John Paul II. They must have been mighty surprised that he got up to, what, 93 years old. On the political side, he achieved limited but real success, especially in Germany, where estrangement between the government and the church was largely healed. Elsewhere, and especially in France and Italy, there was little or no improvement. That's not really surprising, considering the reunification of Italy had left some rather bitter wounds. But beyond the sphere of politics, the years of his pontificate saw significant growth of the church in many places, along with the continued expansion of missionary efforts. He had little interest in ecumenism. After a study by a papal commission, he declared in 1896 that Anglican orders were absolutely null and utterly void. I can't really see the current pope doing that. I think matters have moved on, and there's been, shall I say, a better spirit between the Anglicans and Catholics since that era. But I'm interested to see if he's going to borrow from the ideas of Pope Leo in other spheres, and if we're going to get a pope that may look at first as if he's going to be a super traditionalist, but then will start criticizing untravelled capitalism, which frankly is a problem in the modern world, where you live in a buy it now, buy it now, buy it now, heap it high society, where he who dies with the most toys wins. What they win is not outlined, or because effectively, to use the old cliche, the old folk saying, there are no pockets in shrouds. And so long as you die with 1 penny in the bank and in the black and not in the red, and leave enough for your family, you've done all you should be expected to do. The idea that we must all heap up an accumulation of goods in our lifetimes to somehow be part of society is something that's a very worrying thing. On the other side of that coin, the idea that we have no rights to property has led to equally horrid abuse of powers. And I'm going to be interested to see how Pope Leo XIV's papacy develops from this point.